Whispers don't just float in Buckingham Palace. They crawl through its gilded corridors, clawing at the walls like secrets desperate to get out. And this time, the whispers grew so loud they turned into a roar. King Charles, yes, the man who waited his entire life for the throne, did the unthinkable. He kicked Queen Camilla out, banishing her from royal life. And why? Allegations that she wasn't just playing her role as consort, but secretly plotting to grab the crown for herself. Think about it. Decades of scandal, divorce, and broken promises, all boiling down to this moment. Court insiders called it palace warfare, the kind of behind-the-scenes power struggle that makes TV dramas look tame. But here's the kicker. Camilla thought she was untouchable. She thought she could outmaneuver the king himself. She had loyalists. She had influence stretching far beyond those ornate palace gates. But she underestimated him, and he underestimated her patience. So now Britain is left asking, is this battle over, or has the most dangerous act just begun? Picture this. Chandeliers dripping in gold, crystal glasses glinting under the lights, gowns worth fortunes sweeping across marble floors. It was one of those carefully staged royal evenings, designed to be photographed, broadcasted, and worshipped as the perfect image of unity. King Charles stood beside Camilla, his posture immaculate, his smile, well, convincing enough for cameras. And Camilla? Oh, she was draped in emerald silk, sparkling under the lights, flashing that polished smile she'd perfected over decades of scandal, survival, and careful PR. Elegant, rehearsed, flawless. Cameras clicked, the room glittered, and the world saw a fairy tale. But anyone watching closely could see it, the cracks beneath the surface. Charles's eyes kept drifting, far away from her, far away from the noise, as though he'd rather be anywhere else. Camilla's laughter, a second too late, her touch on his arm stiff, calculated. To the untrained eye, it was romance. To Charles, a performance? Even the royal correspondents noticed. One whispered afterward, it looked brittle, like porcelain ready to crack. And inside Charles's chest, a heaviness. He'd once believed this crown would unify his family, even heal the scars of his marriage. But now, it felt like a prison, with Camilla building walls between them brick by brick. The cameras saw glamour. Charles saw a stranger. But the glittering facade only hid what was happening after hours. When the palace slept, Camilla was wide awake. In her private rooms, curtains drawn tight, wine glass in hand, she whispered with confidence. "She means well," she once muttered. But meaning well isn't the same as ruling well. Read that again. Ruling well. And the whispers spread. Staff heard her say Charles was too soft for the crown, too indecisive. Some overheard her bluntly. If someone doesn't take charge, this whole thing will fall apart. Before long, those whispers weren't whispers at all. They were rumors of a queen preparing to take charge herself. Suddenly, the press got curious stories, articles praising Camilla's strength, her vision. And right next to those glowing profiles, headlines painting Charles as hesitant, sentimental, weak. Coincidence? Please. It's not the press sniffing out a story, one royal watcher hissed. It's someone feeding it to them. And who else but Camilla could play that game so well? Inside the palace, Charles noticed the shift. On his desk, a stack of clippings, each one a dagger. Camilla ready to lead if needed. A steady hand on the wheel. He sighed, whispered to no one. Why now? Why this? But aides knew the truth. One of his most loyal courtiers spoke to him in confidence. She's building her own court inside the palace, surrounding herself with people loyal to her, not to the crown, not to you. Even in public, Camilla stopped hiding her dominance. She stepped ahead of him to greet guests. She cut across his sentences in meetings. She brushed it all off as practicality. But her eyes, they glinted with ambition, and her inner circle grew. Journalists, politicians, power players who had no business lounging inside Buckingham Palace. She called it networking. Staff whispered she was playing the long game. She's moving chess pieces, one aide muttered, and Charles doesn't even see the board. But oh, he felt it. Deep in his bones, in the shadows of those long corridors lined with portraits of monarchs who had survived betrayals and rebellions. He felt it, even as he told himself he didn't. And then it happened. The moment Charles could no longer dismiss as gossip. One morning, while sifting through letters in his private study, he found one that made his heart freeze. It was from a political ally talking about future leadership and ensuring stability. But scrawled in the margin, in Camilla's own handwriting, were the words that shattered him. The crown must be in capable hands. I am ready when the time comes. Charles sat frozen, the paper trembling in his hands. Those words weren't just ambition, they were intent. And before he could catch his breath, the second blow landed. A recording was played for him. Camilla's voice, calm and chilling, telling a confidant, "His health isn't what it once was. Someone has to think of the monarchy's future. If I must take charge, so be it." There it was, proof. Not just whispers, not rumors, her own words, dripping with certainty. Charles smashed a glass against the floor, his rage boiling over. "After everything," he muttered, his voice breaking. He had defended her, fought for her, sacrificed for her. And this was her loyalty? He didn't keep it to himself. He called in the only two royals he trusted, Prince William and Princess Anne. William read the letter, jaw tightening. Then he listened to the recording, silent, dark-eyed. Finally, he muttered, "Your stepmother would crown herself if she could." Anne stormed in, glanced at the wrecked study, and cut straight to the truth. This wasn't an accident. Letters like this don't just appear. This is who she is. They argued late into the night, Charles, William, Anne, all circling the same bitter truth. Camilla wasn't just ambitious, she was dangerous. And Charles couldn't ignore it anymore. The woman he had once loved was now the enemy inside his own palace. It was inevitable. The palace drowned in rain that night, as if the heavens themselves were preparing for war. Charles summoned Camilla. She walked in, emerald dressing gown flowing, feigning calm. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "How long have you been planning this?" His voice was low, steel-edged. She froze. Planning what? He stepped forward, fury rising. "Was this your game all along? You used people, discarded them, and now me. Don't lie. Not after I've seen the letters. Not after I've heard the recordings." For once, Camilla dropped the mask. Her eyes hardened. "And what would you have me do? Watch you stumble while this monarchy crumbles? Someone has to lead. If you can't rule, then I will." Charles's rage cracked into grief. Diana's face flashed in his mind. Diana, who would never have sought to take his crown. Diana, who had stood beside him, not against him. And now he saw it clearly. He had betrayed her for a woman who was willing to betray him. "You were supposed to be my partner," he whispered, his voice breaking. But Camilla didn't flinch. "This isn't betrayal. This is survival." And with that, she turned, left the room, and slammed the door. For Charles, it was the point of no return. Whatever remained between them had shattered, just like the vase lying broken on the marble floor. The morning after that explosive showdown, Buckingham Palace didn't feel like the same fortress of tradition. It felt like a war zone. The staff whispered in corridors, voices hushed, eyes darting. Loyalties were shifting in silence, like soldiers choosing sides before the battle horn blows. Some stood firmly with Charles. They saw him as a wounded king, betrayed but still steady enough to hold the monarchy together. But others? They murmured that Camilla was stronger, more decisive, a leader who wouldn't crumble under pressure. "It's survival," one aide whispered, "and Camilla plays for keeps." And soon, the whispers weren't just inside the palace. They leaked. Oh, they leaked everywhere. Within days, tabloids exploded with headlines, "Buckingham's silent civil war." Is Camilla ready to rule? Rumors swirled about screaming matches, separate bedrooms, rival camps forming under the same roof. Twitter burned with hashtags. Team Charles trended with floods of sympathy for a king many now saw as a victim. But almost immediately, Team Camilla rose to fight back, praising her as strong, modern, unafraid. Royal commentators couldn't resist. "This isn't just marriage trouble," one pundit declared on air. "This is a full-blown battle for the crown." And perception in this game was everything. Behind the palace doors, Charles felt the walls closing in. Even his own advisors, men who had served him loyally for decades, began suggesting ever so gently that perhaps Camilla should take on more duties. The implication was poison. She was already becoming the face of the monarchy, with or without his consent. At one meeting, Charles finally snapped. "And where does that leave me?" he asked, his voice trembling. Silence. No one dared to answer. Later, walking through the gallery of royal portraits, he stopped before Edward VIII. the king who abdicated in disgrace for love. Behind him, a senior courtier's voice cut through the silence. The last time the monarchy faced this much internal warfare, it ended in abdication. The word sent chills down Charles's spine. Abdication. Could history repeat itself? That night, alone in his study, rain pelting the windows, Charles knew this wasn't just about love or betrayal anymore. It was about survival of the crown itself. Enough was enough. Charles called in his legal advisors, thick folders spread across his desk, filled with centuries-old laws and constitutional clauses. His voice was calm, but his eyes were burning. "Tell me," he demanded, "how does a monarch strip a queen of her role without tearing the monarchy apart?" One advisor shifted nervously. "It can be done, Your Majesty, but it will leave scars the public will see for decades." Charles's reply was like steel. "Then it must be a scar we learn to live with." The next step was spiritual as much as legal. He met with the Archbishop of Canterbury in a candlelit chamber of Buckingham Palace. The question weighed on him like a boulder. How do you remove a queen without tearing the crown in two? The Archbishop's answer was blunt. No path leaves you untouched. But sometimes to save the body, you must cut deep. And Charles knew. There was no turning back. Camilla didn't sit quietly while Charles plotted. No, she rallied her allies, journalists, politicians, old friends. He forgets who stood by him when the world despised him. "I will not go quietly," she vowed. But the reckoning came. Charles, in a dark suit before millions, declared coldly, "Loyalty to the crown must come before ambition. The queen consort will be stepping back from royal duties indefinitely." Click. Silence. The storm had begun. Camilla's exit was quiet, a black car slipping through palace gates. At her country estate, she whispered to confidants, "The game is far from over." The nation split. Some hailed Charles as strong, others called him vindictive. Even the royals fractured. William coolly supportive, Anne unwavering, and Harry shockingly siding with his father. But behind the scenes, Camilla's allies whispered, leaked, and threatened. Anonymous letters arrived at Buckingham, reeking of her perfume. "The queen you cast aside will be the one to bring you down." Alone in his study, Charles muttered to himself, "So it begins." And so it does. The crown may have cut her out, but the war for the throne is far from finished.